All right, we're taking a few weeks and we're looking at one of the most important men in history, John Bunyan. And the reason some may ask, why do we care about his trial? Well, one thing I think that we can see very obviously in our country today is a lack of understanding of history. And it's so important, I think, to understand, how we got here and what it was that happened in men's lives and people's lives and what they did to get here. And this is one of those men. This is one of those people that coincidentally, he's a Baptist, so we're studying him here, but great man of God. Of course, he wrote, John Bunyan would go to prison for 12 years, and he would write in prison several things, but one that we know mostly is Pilgrim's Progress. And of course, that book, and I don't know if it still holds today, but second only to the Bible's most published book in the world history. And he has another great book that you may have read that was also written during this time, and I think it's called Grace Abounding to the Chiefest of Sinners. And I was looking at that book this week, and that's an amazing book. And he refers to this trial in the book. That's what I was reading, one of the chapters that he's talking about. But so we're reading what the judge is asking him, and what sometimes we maybe romanticize things, and we for 12 years, and yet we're hearing the entire trial right here, and this is it. And so I think it's very interesting. And of course, last week we left off that Judge Wingate is the judge in charge of the court. He is gassed. He is confounded by Bunyan, by his beliefs in religious freedom. Of course, this is not something that happened in the last 50 years. This happened 400 years ago, long before there was ever religious freedom. And that's the point. That's why he's in prison, or going to prison, is because there is a lack of religious freedom. So anyway, the judge says, just to back up just a little bit, he says, you are arguing that every man has a right given him by Almighty God to seek deity in his own way without the benefit of the English church? And Bunyan says, that's precisely what I'm arguing, my lord, or without benefit of any church. And the judge says, do you know what you're saying? And he says, yet you affirm a God-given right to hold any alien religious doctrine that appeals to the warped minds of men. And Bunyan says, on the basis, my lord, he says, what is the basis for this? And he says, on the basis, my lord, that a man's religious views or lack of them are matters between his conscience and his God, and are not the business of the crown nor parliament, or even, with all due respect, my lord, of this court. However much I may be in disagreement with another man's sincerely held religious beliefs, and he's referring to, he would disagree with the Catholics, he would disagree with the Muslims. He said, however I may be in disagreement with another man's religious beliefs, neither I nor any other may disallow his right to hold these beliefs. No man's right in these affairs are secure if every other man's rights are not equally secure. And the judge says, it's obvious, sir, that you are a victim of deranged thinking. And he says, Bunyan then says, the state, my lord, may have no interest in anything in which the state, my lord, may have an interest in anything in which it wishes to have an interest, but the state has no right whatever to interfere in the religious life of its citizens. And so these are profound words. I mean, you can just imagine, and profoundly silly to this court that he's in at this time. And so the judge, of course, like anybody who's confronted with a great argument, he changes the subject. And he says, Mr. Bunyan, you are a tinker by trade, are you not? And now a tinker is about as low on the socioeconomic level as you can get. A tinker would be a very uneducated man, and a tinker would be a person that repairs pots and pans and cooking utensils. That's how low on the order it is. So the judge is going to mock him a little bit here and says, would you mind appraising this court of the extent of your formal schooling? And Bunyan says, not at all, my lord. Able am I to read and write, and that with difficulty. I surmise as much. I think I perceive why you are unable to appreciate the disaster that would accompany your views should ever they hold sway. He said, I myself, and I say this with all modesty, am not inconsiderably trained in the historian's discipline. If you were half well-versed as yourself, you would have instantly recognized the fatal flaw in your reasoning. The judge goes on, you are, Mr. Bunyan, a strong-willed and opinionated man, yet this court finds it fascinating to speak with you and wishes time permitted for further discussion. But alas, time is passing swiftly, and other cases await our attention. So let us move then to the matter before us, shall we? The evidence I hold in my hand, even with your own admission of guilt, is sufficient to convict you, and the court is within its rights to have you committed to prison for a considerably long time. I do not wish to send you to prison, Mr. Bunyan. I am aware of the poverty of your family, and I believe you have a little daughter who unfortunately was born blind. Is this not so? And Bunyan says, it is so, my lord. Very well. The decision of this court is this. Inasmuch as the accused has confessed his guilt, we shall follow a merciful and compassionate course of action. We shall release him on the condition that he swear solemnly to discontinue the convening of these religious meetings, and that he affix his signature to such an oath prior to quitting the courtroom. That will be all, Mr. Bunyan. I hope not to see you here again. May we hear the next case, please? So the judge let him go. The judge was done with him. And Bunyan said, excuse me, my lord, if I may have another moment of the court's time. Now, this is amazing. Listen to what happens here. He says, yes, but be quick about it. We have other matters to attend to. What is it? I cannot do what you asked me, my lord. I cannot place my signature upon any document in which I promise henceforth not to preach. My calling to preach the gospel is from God, and he alone can make me discontinue what he has appointed me to do. As I have no word from him to that effect, I must continue to preach, and I shall continue to preach. Mr. Bunyan, you are trying the patience of this court. And sir, that's not my intention. And so the court, Wingate says, I warn you, sir, this court has gone the second mile to be lenient with you out of concern for your family's difficult situation. Truth to tell, it would appear that the court's concern for your family far exceeds your own. Do you wish to go to prison? No, my lord, few things there are that I would wish less. And we'll stop there. We'll pick it up next week. Got to come back next week, see what happens. So we want to thank the Lord for this man. And you see what just happened. The court let him go. And he stopped the court and said, no, I can't sign that document.